Hey guys, welcome back to Manufacturing Talks. I'm Jim Vanoski. Got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking recruiting because recruiting is always important. Recruiting in manufacturing, obviously, right up my alley. And recruiting in skilled trades is what our guest today, in part, specializes in. He's here to talk about his focus on that and why it's so important. And his name is Taylor Evans, runs a company called Rust Belt Recruiting down in Cleveland. He'll be here with us in just a few seconds. So stay tuned for this critical topic here on Manufacturing Talks.
Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vanoski. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Manufacturing Talks. I'm Jim Vanoski, your host, and I'm joined today by Taylor Evans. He is grudgingly called president at his own company, Rust Belt Recruiting. Welcome, Taylor.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the introduction. But
Absolutely. We were talking before we got on. Neither of us really likes that whole title business, and so we've got that in common right out of the gates. Before we dive into what you do, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so Taylor Evans, as you said, and I am the president of Rust Belt Recruiting. But I grew up in the Reading, Pennsylvania area, another industrial community, now relatively post-industrial. I moved out to Ohio for college at Ohio University. Go Bobcats! And then was steered up to Cleveland. I was a sport management major in college, and so I came up here. I followed the bright lights of the NBA and the paltry salary that accompanied it, and I sold tickets for 16 months. And that was 16 months isn't half bad in the ticket sales world. It's a cutthroat entry-level position that can offer some promotion opportunities, but worked for the Cavaliers and the Charge, which was our D-League team, the Monsters, which was our AHL hockey team, and the Gladiators, which was our now defunct arena football team. Yeah. And from there, I had a couple other forays through the sports industry, specifically in the sports commission world. Worked for both the Cleveland and then the Austin, Texas Sports Commission. But about 4 months before the opportunity presented itself in Austin, I met a wonderful woman who I now call my wife, and we dated at a distance for 2 years. And so ultimately, I returned to Cleveland, and we now have a family of 4. And live here again in the greater Cleveland area on the west side. And about 7 years ago, I started Rust Belt Recruiting. We'll be 7 years old in November, and any business owner will tell you their business is one of their children as well. So I could probably say I have 5 children, and obviously Rust Belt's an important baby to us, and it's no longer a baby. It's a full-fledged thing that we're super proud of what it's become, and love where it's led us. So again, that's a little bit about me and just a brief snapshot into my background.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously you get this question all the time. Sports to recruiting.
Yeah. Well, I've at least created a narrative that we can run with here. So when I went to Ohio University, which the sport management program there and sports administration are often regarded as the #1 program in the nation for that. Fun fact for this episode, there's a disproportionate number of athletic directors out there who are Ohio University alums. Actually, the most exciting one in the last week, the new CEO of Nike is an Ohio University sports administration.
Wow.
So yeah, that's not a half bad alum to tout. And so it's a great program there. And I wanted to be the next Jerry Maguire. And so, I wanted to represent athletes and work with them on their careers. And, I think I talked to a half dozen or more agents who told me, don't do this. This career path is gut wrenching. You don't want to do it. And I could certainly delve into the examples they were giving, but won't. But my young arrogance said, oh, they just see me as young competition and they don't want me in the industry. Fact of the matter is, I think they were telling the truth, or at least they said it enough times that I believed it. And especially after one example. And so, I went a couple different ways. Towards the end of my college career, I wanted to get into fundraising for college athletics, which is a kind of a track then to go be an athletic director.
Okay.
And so a mentor of mine, who's still a friend to this day, Jim Kaler, told me, go cut your teeth in sales. That's the foundation for fundraising.
Yep.
And so that's what led me there. The way I tie the two together is, while I don't represent professional athletes, I represent industrial athletes. My company represents industrial athletes in their pursuit of their career. So we get to be a part of people's professional journey and their careers. So again, maybe it's a stretch, but that's what we're going with, to at least make it feel like we tied the two together.
I like it. I think it makes sense, and it definitely creates that path from one to the other.
Yeah.
Okay, so you established Rust Belt Recruiting 7 years ago. What was it specifically that you wanted to accomplish in the recruiting field?
Yeah, so I had been with a recruiting company for a year and a half before.
Okay.
And so I had some exposure to the industry. I really wanted to create a recruiting company where it was a higher quality candidate experience and the continued humanization of the candidates. And specific to the industrial marketplace that we serve, when I started the business, I saw a void to provide a high quality professional service specifically to the blue collar workforce, and especially the skilled tradespeople, right? So, Jim, I don't need to tell you that the skilled tradespeople that we at Rust Belt serve are just as skilled, if not more, than I am at running my business or selling our services or whatever it is, right?
Well, I'm really glad you said it, but you definitely don't need to convince me.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I get to, every time I walk through these industrial facilities that I'm in, these manufacturing facilities, you see $250,000 machines or more. And I'm looking at this thing like, I'm a fully competent professional, but if you put me in front of that thing, I'd either break it or certainly wouldn't know how to run it. So the people that do the trades, the people that work in these skilled roles in a manufacturing facilities are just as much a professional as you and me. And we've always provided, from a recruitment and talent acquisition standpoint, really nice white glove services to the professional ranks, which, again, skilled tradespeople are professionals, but in this instance, I mean, salaried roles like sales, controllers, HR, you name it. And of course, the executive search level. And I said, how can we provide a higher quality service? Because the supply and demand strategy of the agency recruiting world is not providing the caliber of services to the skilled workforce of our region that they deserve. We are relegating those type of roles to staffing agencies. And I don't know about you, but if someone called me today and said, hey, Taylor, we're really interested in hiring you. You're a great professional. Would you like to leave your company to be tried out for 90 days? And if after 90 days we like you, you can be full-time. That's
right.
That's the situation we're in by trying to have temporary staffing agencies provide recruitment support to these manufacturers for their skilled roles. So I set down that path to say we can provide a better service. And again, when I was starting my business, I was just trying to make $1 more than I was at the last job to justify that I was out on my own. There is that entrepreneurial spirit and independence and freedom that has come with that. And we have certainly accomplished that, which I'm proud of, and have grown a company around us. But at the end of the day, it's providing that high quality experience to the skilled tradespeople that we get to work with. Since then, the company has kind of, a 50-50 ratio of, the skilled roles that we work on and then the professional roles as well. So again, you do enough good work and they start asking you, can you fill our controller? Can you fill our HR role? Can you fill this sales role, plant manager, you name it, right? And so the business has expanded that way. But from day one, I wanted to really serve the industrial workforce in a more meaningful way than I saw was being done.
So I find it really interesting that you called out something that I myself have completely missed. And I have been banging the drum for months and years about how, there's all this talk about how we're behind on skilled trades. People do not understand the gravity of the situation, right? And to be treating people that way, who are literally the lifeblood of our manufacturing businesses, and still acting like they're just these unskilled, unwashed masses in the way we approach hiring them and bringing them on board. What an amazing observation that is.
Yeah. Actually, to go just a slightly different path, but coming at it from the same angle, I know of one manufacturer who shuttered their doors for 2 weeks during COVID. They, for some reason, didn't declare themselves an essential service, but across the board, manufacturers were deemed essential services. And I was actually laughing. I've been thinking about just, we're now 4.5 years out from the start of COVID, and a lot of the normalcy has returned, at least in how we operate our day-to-day lives.
Right.
And just thinking back on that time, but I was chuckling to myself about how defeating it must have been. So many people were declared an essential service. What did it feel like to be in one of those businesses that wasn't?
Right. Yep.
It definitely must have been discouraging, or at least a reality check. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I have a friend who was previously on our podcast, just like yourself, Jason
Yep.
Scales, who pointed out something in the last year. Jason pointed out the Department of Defense has declared the skilled trade shortage as a national security crisis.
Yeah.
Let's just stop the
Good.
episode there. Let's just stop the episode there, because that's
Yeah.
all the message you need to understand, that the skilled trade shortage threatens our national security.
Yep.
Whoa.
Yep. With that being said, you focus on the Midwest, the Rust Belt, as your name says. Are there any things you're seeing specific to our region of the country that are particularly driving how you approach everything?
Well, I think it's an important observation over the last year or two, from mid 21 through mid 22, that 12-month stretch. The labor market was insane, right? And
Yeah.
I've been talking about this a lot lately. And over the last 24 months, we've been seeing a return to some semblance of normalcy. Now, having owned an agency for 7 years, I'm going through some of my first iterations of these type of things, right? So
Yep.
when I started the business, it was late 17, and I was fortunate to catch my first wave with a manufacturer who was directly impacted by the steel tariffs that President Trump was putting in
Yep.
2018. And those tariffs drove a great amount of activity to their company, and everything followed. But the first 5 years was disproportionately hot market, and every recruiter, now there was a blip obviously with COVID for 1 to 3 months depending on
Yeah.
your business, but overall that first 5 years of my business was wild. And so the last 2 years has probably shown me more of what normal will look like, and
Yeah.
what we have to build on and around. Now, with that in mind, I think what we've seen over the last 2 years is I've shared this recently. There's a lot of stagnation in the labor market, and usually the Midwest, or call it the Rust Belt, is the first to get hit hard when an economic slowdown occurs.
Mhm.
And again, the industrial workforce is right at the front of that. However, because of COVID, we've seen a great deal of activity in reshoring. Here specifically in the Buckeye State, we have a tremendous entity called Jobs Ohio, which goes out and there's 7 regional partners, and they bring in a lot of new business. So reshoring and Ohio are at the forefront of being able to benefit from this reshoring efforts. We saw companies not laying people off. We saw companies not making cuts to their shop floor. They let attrition run its natural course, and when a key role needed to be refilled, so be it. But 4 or 5 years ago, companies were like, if you have someone who can do this, just send us their resume and we'll schedule an interview immediately. Like, even if we don't have an opening, we'll hire them because there's so much constant demand. And inflation remained pesky for the last 2 years, and it stayed strong. But again, companies weren't letting people go, while there's also this looming fear of a recession, so people aren't quitting their jobs. So from a labor market, from a quits rate standpoint, the movement really regressed towards the mean. And from our standpoint, that doesn't create a lot of hiring activity, which isn't good for business. The wins are fewer, but at the same time, it's promising to see that companies are valuing their workforce and saying, we'd rather give up a little margin and explain that to our stakeholders than go through the arduous task of rebuilding our workforce in 12, 24, whenever things return to a normal economy and interest rates level and things continue to improve. So we are up against it in terms of creating opportunities for ourselves. But I'm really happy and proud of the manufacturers for, again, recognizing how hard it is to build that workforce. And again, with reshoring, all the other factors, they're just trying to ride the wave or stay steady through the storm to get to the other side.
Yep.
Sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but
but it's interesting. It's not something I thought of about. I knew that there was that tapering off of activity, but it's interesting that there's that different approach around it. But before we get too far away from your founding, I mean, 17 was before the real kind of wave of concern and panic in some regard around the skilled workforce numbers not being there. It was before all that hit. So I'm just impressed that you went out of the gates in that direction when it really wasn't at that time a big thing.
I'll respectfully disagree that I think
Okay, fair enough. That's why you're here, to teach me.
I think the conversation around skilled workforce has been going on for 10 plus years. You just had to be listening and seeing the cliff coming. And maybe I'm not hearing you right, but
actually it's interesting because I think we might both be right. I'm coming at it more from the business management end of things. You're coming from it from the labor supply end of things. And I think there has been this disconnect around what people out in the field understand versus what people like you understand.
Yeah. So, I read the book Hillbilly Elegy in 2016 or 2017. And obviously, Senator Vance is very much at the forefront of the national political landscape now. No one saw where he would be going at that point in time. But, it was really interesting to me to be able to resonate or connect with, or through his words, the industrial workforce. And, he's from Middletown, Ohio, down by Cincinnati. And it just gave me this, it stirred in me in a big and meaningful way. And while I don't attribute, my business to that book, it certainly served as a meaningful data point around that time to say, man, we are overlooking a really important population in this country. And I don't want to go down a political track with our discussion, but Donald Trump tapped into that. Donald Trump spoke to that audience in a meaningful way, which led to his election in 2016. And so, there is there is a population in our country, a significant one and an essential one, right? To play on
Mhm.
earlier, an
Right.
essential population for the viability of our country. And I can tell you that our country continues to move, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
commerce continues to happen in this country. So our country, one thing we're really good at is sensationalism, right?
Yep.
It's a hallmark of America at this
Yep.
point. And so you hear this loud and proud message about if we can't get these people, we can't move forward in business. And you take everything at face value, but you also have to take it with a grain of salt. And
Yep.
so as I've gotten into it more and more, and actually seen businesses close because of their inability to attract people. I think of one business right now where it's like, man, I talked to you 2 years ago and you weren't willing to engage us for this, and now you're just shutting it down. Like, and so I'm not saying we would have been their white knight, but it is hard, and it is truly affecting small to middle market businesses in a big way. And that's heartbreaking because some of these businesses, the one I'm thinking of, I think it was over 100 years old.
Oh, wow.
That's a shame. Like,
Yeah.
that business had stood the test of time. And the fact that there was no further runway in their eyes because of the challenges around workforce is really disheartening to me.
Yeah.
And on a personal note, I have 4 kids. And so for those kids to stay around here, we've got to have a strong economy, a reason to be in Northeast Ohio. And I believe in this region and the people in it and the quality of life that we have here. But I have a personal mission, a chip on my shoulder to say, continue to pour into the economy here. Business is what I care a lot about, and the impact of business, the downstream impact. So if I can do my part in helping these companies to remain viable for the next 20, 30, 40 years, not saying every one of our placements is going to stay there for 20, 30, 40 years, but continue to improve them and keep their workforce strong, and whatever it is they make, keep it going. That helps me sleep at night. That's where I see the value in our work, is really supporting these businesses, because talent acquisition is hard. By the way, we're recruiting even just for one job for ourselves right now, and sometimes we're looking across the table like, oh, this is hard. I mean, it's hard in every business.
Well,
So
yeah.
it's
And there's reasons for
important
that.
to have a quality partner on that front, if not an in-house resource.
Yep, absolutely. The other thing that concerns me, in addition to what I said about people not understanding the gravity of it, and maybe it's not as bad as I thought if folks in your camp get it and can help educate. But the other piece I don't see getting discussed is that this is a decades in the future problem that we're going to grapple with.
Yep.
Because it's I keep calling it the triple whammy. It's the baby boomers, the biggest generation, now retiring in droves. They're also the last generation that had skilled trades valued for them and encouraged. And so you've got both the lack of numbers in the generations coming behind. So it's just the sheer body count isn't there for replacement. But then you don't have the skills, not just the trade training, but even stuff at home. Kids today don't work on cars. They don't do home projects for the most part, like you and I did. I did, maybe. But
Not so much, no.
and so it's a piece I keep hammering is, if you think this is going to resolve itself in the next year, 3 years, or 10 years, you better rethink it. And I keep pushing people to say, if you're in manufacturing and you're not actively engaged in building your own workforce for the future, you're already failing. You're behind.
Yeah, that's, I think, generally the soundbite we used from you on the promotion of the episode, which we had, which
Sure.
again, thank you for coming on it. It was fantastic.
Great fun.
I think what you're describing right now is regarded as the silver tsunami, right? And they're calling it that, is the cliff. And COVID exacerbated that, right? So, the hypothetical Gary, the maintenance manager, who was 63 years old and in a position to retire from his job of 40 years, same job, 40 years, but was loyal as all get out. And the owner Tom kept saying, Gary, give me one more year. Come on. Like, I really need you. And Gary said, fine. But eventually COVID broke out and Gary went home and his wife was like, Gary, you're done. We've got the money and we're not having you get sick and die over this. And so that was a thing. But on top of that, we had the generation of boomers and maybe their parents a little bit, but especially the boomers that wanted a different future for their children. So they said,
Right.
go to college and get a degree. That's the path to a promising future in America. And again, on your episode, which I was listening to this morning, you and Paul talked about the how eventually college loans got federally guaranteed. So these loans were given out and it created a whole new mess. And we're not here today to discuss that. But the point being is we sent an overabundance of people to college rather than saying there's a lot of dignity, quality, and stability still in an industrial career. There's room for growth. There's opportunity. You can do so much in this career path. Mm-hmm. And so we've missed that. And so I am a firm believer. I was on a panel the other night, and one of my strong messages was, it doesn't start in tech school in 11th grade telling a kid they don't have to go to college because they've already been told at that point they have to go to college. Yeah, it starts with the third grader saying, hey, when they're like, what am I going to be when I grow up? And it's usually a doctor, firefighter, or NFL player. So at the end of the day, it's good to continue to support that, but the message doesn't have to be college, right? My 7th grader a few weeks ago said, do I have to go to college? And instantly I said, no, it will be an option. If I'm a betting man, he probably will, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
And if you go to college, just make sure it's the right type of college, right? I'm super proud of what Cuyahoga Community College is, Tri-C here in Cleveland. You can get an awesome education for a fraction of the cost of higher ed. If you're going off to a big university, great. Let's make sure it's a quality degree in something that matters. Super proud of my sport management degree. Have stayed a loyal alumni to Ohio University, and I'm proud of the degree I got. I got to the intrinsic benefits of it, where I learned how to compete with my peers in a top program in the country and work hard and be a leader. Like, all of those things were transferable into my future. However, part of me probably, if I could go back in time, would have gotten a traditional business degree in finance, right? Finance, if you're fancy. But at the end of the day, if you're going to get that degree, make it something that's transferable, applicable, and good for your future. So the conversation has to change with the next generation, where it is okay to go whatever track that you do. I think parents got to be comfortable with that. I was talking to someone this morning and saying how much I admire plumbing as a business. Plumbers make a lot of money, Jim.
Oh, yeah.
Plumbers make a lot of money. And, basic economics, supply and demand, as less people go into plumbing, plumbers are going to make more money. There's a great career to be had. There are so many career paths to be had that don't require a 4-year degree and provide you with an awesome opportunity. What I'm proud to know is, at least for my 13-year-old, in 6 years, if he says, I'm not going to college, or I'm not right away, I'm going to take a gap year, as we often call it, awesome. You're probably going to be working in manufacturing then for a year, and you're going to be exposed to that work, and you're going to be exposed to how things get made, because guess what? His little mind loves that stuff, and I would love to continue to encourage it through real, applicable visibility. But at the end of the day, we've got to normalize talking about college not being the only answer here in America for kids coming out of high school.
So the good news, based on my own personal observations, is that change is happening, because I have a 19-year-old who tried a semester of community college and decided that wasn't for him. He's now in a general building maintenance course at a local tech school. And when I tell people in my circle, so, folks with degrees and working in professional jobs, about that, I, I have yet to have anyone say, well, that's wrongheaded. Everyone I talk to is like, that is phenomenal. He is not going to want for work.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely. And again, it's important to normalize, or not normalize. It's important to emphasize what hard skills are. You know, if you know
right.
how to run a CNC, you'll be able to find work for
Yep.
many years.
Yep.
There's some soft skills that will go with that, but point being is you'll be able to find work. If you know how to do
Absolutely.
accounting, which there's a huge shortage of people going into accounting, you will have a job. So it's also looking at in-demand jobs with your kids and saying, would any of these interest you? Like, do you have a passion for this? Having a passion for underwater basket weaving is not like necessarily reliable, right?
Yeah,
It's
especially if you're
awesome.
paying $120,000 for the degree, right?
It's awesome that you want to do that, and I would encourage you. You know, when you're not working your 9 to 5, do as much of that from 5 to 9. The other 16 hours a day you have, but pick something that is going to be viable and a long-term skill. And if
Right.
you can do that, you will have a career for many years ahead. And last thing I'd say there, building on what I'm saying here, is also understanding the future of work, right? Like,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know, probably was a bad bet to try to be a lifer at Yellow Pages if you join there. Um, and I shouldn't pick on Yellow Pages, because Yellow Pages actually pivoted into being a CRM, which I
Okay. Yep.
I give them kudos for. But point being is, if you wanted to be a DVD maker, that was a short shelf life. You got to be able to look
Right.
towards the future a little bit and see where things are going. Good
Yep.
news for my business, as I think about it, is I don't see anything slowing down relative to the need and demand for skilled workforce. And again, the biggest advocacy that I can do is continue to encourage the next generation to go into it, because they're the ones who are going to make my business viable, and of course the businesses of others. But there's a lot of value in that work for them to consider it. It's not just steering them down a bad path.
Couldn't agree more. Now, I agree. Your business is extremely well positioned with just what you've talked about here. Do you see other areas of opportunity that you might go after down the road?
Immediately just now, a guy who was previously on our podcast, Brandon Krastowski, has an awesome program here in Cleveland called Edwin's Institute. Edwin's stands for Education Wins, and he takes
Okay.
people who are recently out of prison and provides them a 6 to 12 month program where they are
Wonderful.
learning fine culinary skills. So they are, they are going into they run a fine French restaurant here in the Cleveland area, and the recidivism rate is like rock bottom. So teaching, again, folks a skill, how to work in this fine environment, and then they take it and they pursue their careers wherever they do. So quick stump for Edwin's. Point being is he was on
Great.
our podcast, and Paul asked him, where's next? Where would you set up the next Edwin's all over? He goes, we'd rather go deeper here than wider. And then our width will come from the people who branch out. And I think that's the case here with Rust Belt recruiting and our focus on manufacturing. We barely scratched the surface in terms of the impact we're going to be able to make. We'd rather find further and further solutions for manufacturers rather than find the next industry. If I went and served another industry, we've helped a construction company or two along the way, a logistics company or two. We'd want to stay adjacent. We'd want to stay near to industrial. I don't think you're going to see me as a SaaS recruiter anytime soon, or a hospitality recruiter. We like where we're at. We believe in the mission and the importance of the work, and we're focused on again the manufacturing and industrial workforce of our region, because there's a lot of work to do. And if we solve all of those problems for the region, I'm probably not going to need to work anymore.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
I started a business, and I'm comfortable with betting on myself, but I'm not going to make that bet that we're going to solve this all. We're just going to try to do our part and do the work that we believe in, and hopefully continue to advance some companies that want to have a strategic partner to help them through it. And it does take strategy, right? It's not just
Yeah, for
a
sure.
resume mill. It's really like being able to be objective and provide strategic feedback to the company, being able to say, this is who and what we're seeing as candidates. This is how you're positioned in the marketplace. It can become very strategic, which is fun. So yeah, we've got a ton more work to do in manufacturing before we let our focus wander.
Well, you're preaching to the choir here. So anything we haven't covered, Taylor?
No, I just think it's really important to emphasize manufacturing and the careers in it are great career paths, and offer a lot to the people that are involved in them. And I would encourage all the parents out there specifically, get comfortable with encouraging your student to look at an industrial career path before just shipping them off for a 4-year degree and 6 figures in debt to be able to come back to a job that they probably could have worked their way to in those 4 years and probably beyond by getting to work early. So it's really important to continue to carry the message around manufacturing and those careers, and grateful, Jim, to you for giving me the platform to do it today, and just really appreciate Manufacturing Talks and you carrying the message of this important part of our economy.
Glad to do it. And, let me put a plug in for your podcast. So the Rust Belt Rundown, which dives into all the different facets of what you talked about here today. It's all covered there. So I'll include a link to that in the description, and of course a link to your main page as well for those who might need recruiting help.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for doing that. And if any companies want to reach out, we're one email or call away, and aim to be responsive. So looking forward to connecting with them. But again, thank you for carrying the message for manufacturing. It's important, it's impactful, and it's one conversation at a time. And then hopefully that message can be multiplied through platforms like this to encourage people to, consider this as a reliable career path.
I'll keep doing it. Thanks for being here, Taylor. Appreciate your thoughts on this very critical subject. So Taylor brought us critical stuff. I can't promise every guest is going to bring stuff as critical, but everything we talk about here is at least a little critical. So we're here every Tuesday and now hitting Thursdays as well, getting more and more popular, which is great news. So thanks to you guys for being here. Tune in Tuesdays and Thursdays. We'll have new shows for you. Hit like, subscribe, share, text someone if you love this episode, have them tune in, and we'll be back. So signing off for today, Jim Vinosky with Manufacturing Talks. So long.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Watch for new episodes dropping every Tuesday. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.